Clap it up, snap it up. Come on, Happy New Year, everybody. We are so grateful to have all of you all. We are super duper pumped up for all of you all to be a part of what we are doing tonight. I am Pastor Chris Harris, chairman of the Greater Bronzeville Community Action Council. And on behalf of the Greater Bronzeville Community Action Council, as well as all of our Greater Bronzeville Community Action Council executive committee members, we are so grateful that you all have decided to join us on tonight. We are super duper excited, and we want to ask you all tonight, make sure that you know you are not a guest, you are family, and we welcome you tonight. We're super duper happy about it. There are a couple of things that we want you all to do. If you don't mind, please, if you don't mind, take a moment and text somebody else. Make sure that you reach out to somebody else and tell them that they don't want to miss this meeting tonight. This is really what it's all about. We are excited about the fact that already it is just 6:06, and y'all ought to clap. More than 250 people are in this meeting tonight. Come on. Now, this is a community meeting. This is what I'm talking about. Y'all ain't clapping. Y'all do better than that. We are excited about 250 plus people, and the numbers keep going up. Every word that I say, more people are coming in, and we are super duper excited about it. There are a couple of things that we want to do tonight to make sure that we do a housekeeping rules. Please don't try to unmute yourself. We have a specific agenda tonight, and we have individuals that are going to be a part of what we are doing. I want to again thank the Greater Bronzeville Community Action Council, and what we call Greater Bronzeville Footprint is 67th Street South, 22nd Street North, Lakeshore Drive, Dan Ryan. That's what we call Greater Bronzeville. In addition to that, CPS typically calls that the Bronzeville South Lakefront Footprint. So we are super excited about what the agenda is going to be tonight. We got a few questions for you all tonight. And so I'm the chairman of the Greater Bronzeville Community Action Council, Pastor Chris Harris, also the founder and CEO of Bright Star Community Outreach. Do me a favor. If you are affiliated with any school in the Greater Bronzeville area, blow up the chat, not the question and answer. Affiliated with any school, blow up the chat right now. What school? Give us the class. That's right, Wanda Mays. She said Dunbar class 82. Come on, Director of Donahue, thank you for being here. April, Illinois Tech is in the house. Phillips High School, the principal, Principal Talley, chairperson of the LSC at Dunbar. Come on, NKO is in the house. A Phillips parent is in the house. University of Chicago Charter School, Donahue is in the house. Come on, what else we got? Woodlawn is in the house. My God, Northeastern Illinois University, Carruthers Center for Inner City Studies. I said all of it, didn't I? In the house. MLK, Martin Luther King High School, 1997. Dunbar Strong, Perspectives, IIT Math and Science Academy, Dunbar Alumni Association Executive Board. Come on. I'm a speed teacher, sped teacher for Mollison. Come on, the administrator, principal for Air Force Academy High School. Y'all, Marshall, class of 1984, Hales, 1998, MLK, 1992, Dunbar, 1967, cheerleader alumni. Watch yourself. Vandercook College of Music is in the house. DuSable alumni, De La Salle Institute, Diet LSC chairman. Come on, DuSable graduate 85, Dunbar. Wait a minute, Ruth Nichols, Dunbar class of 1953, all Hall of Famer. I need y'all snapping it up, clapping it up. Come on, King 1990, Miss Love Moore, Dunbar 1982, Teal ES, the other principal Tally. I love that. LSC chair at Ward Elementary, Chicago Military Academy, Phillips High School, Apostle Jericho Renewal Life, thank you. Dunbar, Lord, Revis is in the house. All of these folks, Bronzeville Classical, y'all clap it up and snap it up. We sent out the clarion call and y'all showed up. It is 6:09 and already we have 289 constituents. Y'all clap and go crazy up in here. I got pastors in here, political leaders in here. Come on, school leaders in here, parents, students, Y'all snap it up. CPS is here. We are really excited about this. We got a few questions for you all. So do this for us. Quick survey. See if y'all can do this. Annie, let's go. We got a few questions. We want y'all to try to fill it out. Stay with us. It's only going to be 2 hours. I promise. I start on time and leave on time. Go ahead. Fill out the question. You see it there on the screen. What zip code do you live in? 60609, 60615, 60616, 60621, 60637, 60653. If you don't want to put it in the answer the question on the poll, put it in the chat, blow it up. Come on, we're going to have all the records of it. Come on, put it there. Put it. Lim Bloom is in the house. Persian Magnet is in the house. Come on, tell us what zip code you live in. My God, y'all are in this joint tonight. Y'all are in this joint. So fill that out. Go to the next question, Annie. Next question. Can we move? All right, hold on. Can we move past that one? All right, take the questions down. I got another question. Put it all in the chat really fast. Give me your age bracket. 0 to 10, 11 to 20. Come on. 20 to 30, 30 to 40. Come on. If you don't want to tell us, say anonymous. Come on. Come on. I see you there. If you've lived, come on, past COVID, you ought to be proud of being alive. Come on. I want y'all to go crazy. Share it. This is what I'm talking about. Just put it in the chat. Don't worry about the poll. Put it in the chat. Y'all ain't snapping it up. Clap. We got more than 300 people on this Greater Bronzeville Community Action Council meeting. What's your age bracket? Put it there. Come on. This is what I'm talking about. Thank you there. All right. Here's the next question I got for y'all. Put it in the chat if you got to do it. What best describes you? Are you a principal, teacher, faith leader, community leader, faith-based organization member, community-based organization member? Are you a business owner? Are you a local resident, clergy? Come on. Administration, staff, safe passage. Come on, blow up the chat. Just blow up the chat. Y'all in here tonight. This is what I'm talking about. My goodness, more than 300 people at this meeting already, and we ain't even 15 minutes in. Come on, describe yourself in the chat. Thank you. The media is here tonight. Thank you. Local resident, special ed teacher, faith-based leader, small business owner, resident, alumni, community member, high school social worker. Thank you for all of your work. School administrator, resident. Man, y'all here tonight. And if you know any other Greater Bronzeville Community Action Council members or folks that live in the footprint, 67 South, 22nd North, Lakeshore Drive, Dan Ryan, tell them, come over here. We need them to join on with us tonight. I'm ready to move us forward. And I want to say thank you again for joining us tonight. We are on a tight agenda. We always start on time and we end on time. Use the hand raise function. If you are a Greater Bronzeville Community Action Council EC member, I want to tell y'all thank you. All about y'all clap it up and snap it up. These people meet with me every single month. Carl Hurdley, James Patrick, Dr. Marion Malcolm, Sida Segovia Taylor, and Organic Oneness. Come on, raise your hand. Vivian Harper. These are folks we meet twice a month, and we've been around. Miles Francis over at the University of Chicago. All of you all, I want to tell you thank you for your leadership in helping to steer this ship in the right direction. It keeps us focusing. Nicole Carter, all of these folks, thank you very much. Crystal Savage, I'm scrolling through. Sylvia Osborne, thank you for the EC that meets twice a month and sometime more than that to make sure that we make all schools better in the Greater Bronzeville footprint. Now listen, what is Bronzeville? I'm ready now, because what I want to do is help you to understand. After you understand the work that we do as a community action team, we have a community action plan, and we have been meeting now and doing this work for more than 10 years. Y'all ought to clap for longevity. These people have been working hard for more than 10 years, and it is because of their work and their efforts that we are able to tell you about our community action plan work. Check it out.
The Greater Bronzeville Community Action Plan is BSCO's strategic plan to address community violence and the resulting violence. Through partnerships with over 70 organizations, Bright Star Community Outreach convenes action tables to effect change in the greater Bronzeville community and beyond. As a convener, we endeavor to identify, deliver, and evaluate high-quality programs for youth and families, ensure education equity for all schools in Bronzeville, increase the resilience of people affected by trauma and violence, provide employment and placement services for residents of Greater Bronzeville. Our areas of emphasis include, but are not limited to, housing, social determinants of health, workforce development, and education. The Community Action Plan was created by listening to the voice of the community and putting into actionable steps ways to collectively bring about change. By the end of this year, through this partnership, BSCO has been able to provide $624,000 in financial support to 10 organizations. During the first round of funding, BSCO awarded 7 organizations with $208,000 to provide services that supported parental leadership and engagement at the school level. The second round of funding provided 3 new and 5 re-granted organizations with $416,000 to support in-school programming that focused on mentorship and trauma-related wraparound services. As the convener and not the competitor, we are looking to the future with hope and the spirit of collaboration to make the greater Bronzeville community and beyond a more livable, vibrant, and thriving community.
So we are excited about the partnership and all the work that we're doing together in the Community Action Plan. You all blew this thing up so much. I think we are limited to 300. Oh my God. Y'all clap it up and snap it up. We got folk trying to get in. Annie, y'all find out right now. Nicole, are we limited to 300? Y'all got to find out for me real fast. Because we're going to be sending this out to everybody. Can y'all figure out if we can stretch it even beyond that? Let me know. I want to keep us moving. Listen, I'm excited about what's happening tonight. What is Bronzeville? I'm a son of the soil of Bronzeville. And here is what is vitally important. As the son of the soil of Bronzeville. And by the way, we're going to be emailing everybody this link. You'll be able to share it on your social media and send it out to other folks. This is the first of many to come. I am excited about what is happening. Bronzeville, I have asked, because many people don't even realize, like Harlem and so many other places, unfortunately, when there's gentrification and there are folks who didn't really come from the community, history gets whitewashed. And tonight, I'm excited to have an individual who knows the history, the Associate Professor of History in Africana Studies at the Chicago State University. He's going to talk about the historic boundaries of Bronzeville. Would y'all clap it up and snap it up for Professor Dr. Lionel Kimball. Dr. Kimball, how you doing today, sir?
I'm well. How are you?
Man, I'm fantastic. Can you teach us about the boundaries of Bronzeville?
Yeah, I can do that. But I just want to talk before we get into the presentation. I have just a few slides I want to share. I think we're all here because we have a love for Bronzeville, and we're very much concerned about our community. Just a very quick story about me, like Pastor Harris. I am a son of Chicago. You know, my people have been in Chicago since around the turn of the century, and you know, I think my studies of the community is very near and dear to me. I live in the neighborhood. My children go to school in the neighborhood. I have a daughter at Kenwood, and my son is at National Teachers Academy. My grandparents grew up around 39th and Dearborn, went to Wendell Phillips High School. So we're very much from and of the community. So I just want to talk a little bit about just thinking about Black life, Blackness on the South Side of Chicago, and give us some perspective on the historical roots about and how we should really think about and conceptualize what Bronzeville means. At Chicago State, I'm gonna share my screen too. So at Chicago State, I teach a rather popular class called Black Chicago. And in that particular course, I did a lecture today and challenged my students to think about what we think we know about what Bronzeville is. And largely what we talk about is like Bronzeville is imagined community, right? Where the boundaries was constantly shifting and they were very fluid throughout the history of Black folks, the Black existence, and the Black experiences here in the city of Chicago. So what I know a couple of my colleagues are online. I know Dr. Elizabeth Todd Breland and Dr. Zeta Johnson on the line too. So a lot of this stuff, I think there's a number of resources within this group today, which can, we can use in the future to talk about and help us think about what it means to be in this area. So just very quickly, I always start class looking at what Chicago looked like, right? This is a map somewhere around the 1850s, just give you a sense of the boundaries of what Chicago was. So we see on the southern border, we see 22nd Street. The western border is Western Avenue. The eastern boundary is Lake Michigan, and the northern boundaries are I think bookend by North Avenue and Fullerton, right? But even when we think about where Black folks were living, I think we should move past this myopic thinking about, everyone's always on the south side of Chicago, right? That's what the story of Black folks here picks up. As you can tell by this dotted line here, right? So you can see the two branches of the Chicago River. This is right around Navy Pier. This is the north and south branch of the Chicago River. We see this little dotted line here. This is where the beginning of the Black community in the very early days of the city. So again, moving past this simple thought that, the existence of, Black folks here was existence on what we know as the south side. Here's another map, just give some perspective of where Black folks were living very early. And I want to call your attention to two particular places, right? The first place is the home of John Jones, right? John Jones was at one point perhaps the second most famous Black person in the United States, second arguably only behind Frederick Douglass. John Jones came to Illinois, came to Chicago with about $3.50 in his pocket. And before his death, in today's dollars, would have been seen as probably almost a multimillionaire, right? He came here. One of my mentors, Chris Reed, I think some of you may know him, know Paula Robinson, and other folks know Chris Reed, talks about some of these early settlers who came to Chicago, and they were a community of go-getters. They came here with a spirit, came here with aspirations, and wanted to make something better for themselves. So we have John Jones came here working as a tailor, one of the first African Americans elected to Cook County Board. Before the Chicago fire, they said that he had about $86,000 worth of property, investment in property. After the Chicago fire, at the time of his death, he had about $68,000 in real estate, which comes out to about $3-4 million in today's money, right? So we have John Jones, is very important Black individual living in the downtown area. But I also want to call your attention to this place here, Quinn Chapel. I think all of us are familiar with Quinn Chapel now in its current location around 24th Street in Wabash, right? This is early on. This is about 1847 when the congregation first got started, right? So we're talking about 1850. This is a location, a part of Black Chicago history outside of these boundaries of what we think about 22nd Street. When Pastor Harris called me last night and asked me to do this presentation, I think one of the things that we wanted to make quite clear is that how we think about and how our community has been labeled and the borders have been arbitrarily placed onto where we are and how we live. An arbitrary border of 26th Street or 31st Street, right? Historically, it doesn't quite hold up with facts, right? So another thing, this is another map here, and this is kind of getting into the development of modern Black Chicago. This is really the map turned on its side, and this is a map of the Chicago fire, right? If you think about it, again, Black people were living largely in this area down towards the, I don't think you can see my cursor, down in this area here. When the Chicago fire burned out about 30% of the city, it forces the Black folks and other folks who are living in downtown Chicago, south, west, and north, right? And this is where we started to see the beginning of a Black South Side community. Again, this is about 1870. There's another fire, 1874 or so, which is called the Black Fire, which occurred largely where Black people who were running from the Chicago fire and moving south pushed them further and further south. And this is where we started to see the beginnings of what we know of Black Chicago, the Black Belt, or Bronzeville, right? I was talking to a mentor of mine, Chris Reed, and asking him about just getting some of his perspectives. And for those of us who knew Tim Black, who was largely a walking encyclopedia of the history and legacy of Black Chicago, I think since his death, people like Chris Reed and Bob Starks and others have been very important, helping us shape what we know about where we live. And I talked to him about his perspectives on these boundaries, and when I was getting ready for this presentation today, and he talked about this citation he found in one of his book, Black Chicago, this first century. And he talked about the work of this man named William T. Snead, who wrote this book, If Christ Came to Chicago. And we talked about the borders. Let me see here. So William in work identified twin cores of slum life where the bulk of them established their homes, to quote and read. One extended between Lake Michigan to the east and the Chicago River and Clark Street on the west, and 22nd Street at the south end and Van Buren on the west lane within the boundaries of the infamous Levee District, right? Largely the Vice District. So again, placing Black Chicago outside of the boundaries of 22nd Street. In this area, and the population that Reverend William T. Steed examined for his work on degenerate behavior, If Christ Came to Chicago, it also housed this community called Darkest Africa, right? Derisively named for and recognized by both whites and African Americans who live south in this area. So here we have people like Snead, people like who Reed talks about, Reverend Richard R. Wright Jr., who not related to the writer Richard Wright, right, who worked among African Americans in this area around 18th Street, right? So again, this is really largely challenging what we think about, what we know about these boundaries. Here's another map from 1920. Again, they will have us believe that 31st Street, 26th Street is the northern border of what Bronzeville is. And I think this is one of the things that Pastor Harris wanted us to get to, is to really to rethink the northern edge of this community, right? I think one of the things he talked to me about was really focusing on this area around 22nd and State Street, as we see that the city, the 1920 Race Commission's report found that this area here, right around 18th, 22nd and State Street, about 80 to 90% Black there. All right. So again, challenging what the narrative they're trying to sell us about for African Americans, where we're living at the time. I think this is a very fascinating map here. I just came across this today. I want to use it in class probably this week. Now, this is the narrative they want to sell us, right? This is what the city wants to sell us. This is what a lot of our people in the academic community wants to sell us, or what Bronzeville is, taking away from this northern border. One of the things that I contend is, how can we have the border of Black Chicago ending at 31st or 26th Street, where two of our very important parts of our local history, Quinn Chapel AME Church and one of the Chicago Defender building, are both located on 24th Street. So it's ahistorical to say that Black life, Black Chicago should end at 31st, when these very important symbols and places of our history exists outside of this boundary. So that's one of the ways we can counter that narrative. And lastly, I don't know why this map isn't changing here. And I think more important, this is part of the work that Bernard Turner and other folks who are very much involved with the Bronzeville National Heritage Area, they look at, and this is a map that's being used by the Biden administration in the National Heritage Act, and even according to the federal government and those people who are working very closely on this project, they even term the northern edge of the Bronzeville Metropolitan Natural Heritage Area at 18th Street. So the narrative in which they're trying to sell that this proposed school shouldn't be open to the larger community of our children who live in Bronzeville, when the school is firmly within this historic community, both historically and in the eyes of the federal government, the National Park Service, I think is largely a farce. And I think that's one of the part of the information that this group can use to counter this narrative that this school is not in Bronzeville, where all of the facts and all the data points to that it is.
Dr. Kimball, you have been amazing. Would y'all clap your hands for an educated Black man who is a professor in history? Listen, you cannot whitewash our history. And as the son of the soil of the greater Bronzeville community, I was born and raised in the Dearborn homes, 2930 South Dearborn, apartment 503. Listen, you ain't from the projects unless you say the apartment number, next to the incinerator. And listen, Drake Elementary, I used to break in that school when I was a kid, right? And the reality is, thank God, God changed my life. Isn't it ironic? I used to tear up the school. Now I'm trying to help save the school. And that's what it is about. My auntie and my uncles lived in the Ickies, where this new building is going to be built, right? I had aunts in Stateway Gardens. And then beyond that, had aunts, my nana, all of them raised me up in the Robert Taylor homes. And then you had Ida B. Wells. So as a son of the soil of Bronzeville, my entire life, I've worked, worshiped, and witnessed in the area, Bronzeville. Now listen, everybody, blow up the chat with these words, the Black Metropolis. Come on, the Black Metropolis. Blow up the chat, the Black Metropolis. Do not let what happened to Harlem happen to Bronzeville. Whatever you do, we got to hold on to the rich heritage and history. I actually had people telling me that this school is not in Bronzeville. The devil is a lie, and so is his auntie. And anybody who says that, this is historically a fact that this school is in Bronzeville. So I'm excited about the fact, and please snap it up and clap it up for Professor Dr. Lionel Kimball. Thank you so very much, sir.
Thank you.
We're really, really excited about this. Now, let me say this as we get ready to move on. Our schools are struggling. Our schools are really struggling. And one of the things that we're doing is figuring out how can we help these schools? How can we make sure that they have the resources? Here is the reality. In a lot of ways, many of these schools, Pastor Eric Thomas of Greater Harvest Missionary Baptist Church, right down the street from DuSable, many of these schools are struggling and on hospice. And just think about this. I need you to understand, which is vitally important. We should say nothing until we do something. And we have already maxed, literally, we have already maxed at 6 minutes into it. We had maxed. And a lot of these students, there is data across the nation now that is saying that these students are 2 to 3 years behind nationally. And here's what they're saying. That's because of COVID. Now, here's what I want us to take a moment to think about. How many of you all know that many of our students, schools, were behind 2 to 3 years before COVID? And everybody talks about the fact that they close schools because they're under-enrolled. And they say they close schools because they are underperforming. But very few people talk about the fact that those same schools are under-resourced. They don't have all of the tools that the kids up north have. They don't even have all the tools that some of the kids right around their schools don't have. And we find money for everything when we want to. And I believe that we have a responsibility to make sure that our children have access to a world-class education. So we're trying to do something about that. One of the things that we did was we created something called Turn Center Tutoring. And we are extremely excited about this opportunity to tutor all of our students. I want to unmute a good friend of mine, Mr. Mark Feebig, who used to do SES tutoring way back in the day and helping those young people. Can you unmute Mark? Mark, how you doing, sir?
I'm great, Pastor. Thanks.
Excellent, man. Could you tell people about the experience that you had through SES tutoring and what we're getting ready to do now? Just really quickly, quick commercial. Go for it.
You got it, Pastor Harris. SES of Illinois was founded in 2007. Within a year or so, we became the #1 tutoring company in all of CPS, according to the 5-year data. Our math scores were 62% higher than any other provider in the entire district. And both combining reading and math, we were 21% higher than everyone else. So the statistical gains that we accomplished through partnerships with each school were beyond belief. One small tidbit, when a CPS student graduates 1 year, they only go up 0.7 of a grade. When they used us for SES, we at least got them back on the playing field to 1.1 years. And we're trying to do that again through a partnership with Pastor Harris.
We're really excited about that. Miss Sylvia Osborne, I'm going to ask you if you can unmute and talk about some of the special things that are happening in this program. Mark, just imagine those students were able to go up literally all those numbers in math and reading, but a few things that they missed. SEL. Miss Sylvia, can you unmute? Give her a moment. If you can't unmute, I'll talk about it.
Here I am.
Talk to
Okay.
us very quickly.
Yes, really quick. So this curriculum is evidence-based, which is really cool because it complements what the student is already doing. So we can also customize it for each student individually. Some of the perks are that the student will receive snack, a Chromebook, and their sibling will be able to have a place to go in the event that they may have to walk the student home. They don't have to do that. The student can stay on site and have homework help as well. So this is designed to help the entire household, not just the individual student.
And what's amazing about this is teachers typically make $30, $40, sometime on the high end, $50 an hour to teach. Would y'all take a moment and snap it up and clap it up for all of our educators? What would we be? What would our students be? What would our schools be without all of our educators? Thank you, every principal, every teacher. And listen to me good. One of the reasons that we're doing this is we're going to be able, here's what our vision is. Our vision is to make sure we're able to pay the teachers. We already put it in the budget. Pay the teachers between $65 and $70 an hour. Because if they've been there all day, why not give them a little bit more to do what they've been doing all day? Y'all ought to be snapping it up and clapping it up. We ought to be resourcing our teaching. And let me tell you something, they deserve more. And so this is what we're hoping to do with this evidence-based effort. And so you will continue to hear about Turn Center tutoring. We want to make sure that we do this and this path forward, dealing with TNT and CNC, SEL. We had the crime lab, Rosanna Ander. I want to thank her for becoming a partner because they said at the crime lab, they are going to, over at the University of Chicago, partner with us and do evaluation. Y'all ought to be clapping for that. Come on. We are excited about that. We also got a letter of support from the one and only, oh my God, she is amazing, Chief Eileen Mason. Y'all clap it up because she runs all of the elementary schools. We are excited about what's going on. All we got to do is go to our legislators and other folks in corporate funding, philanthropic funding, to be able to go and get about 10 to 12 million to make sure that we launch this with 4,000 students, Turn Center tutoring. We want to make sure they don't just get tutoring, the teachers get appreciated, the young people have some place to go, and we're making sure we're giving parents jobs through all of this and safe passage, making sure that they keep the kids safe. So please continue to get yourself ready to hear about Turn Center tutoring. Now think about this. The main reason we're here tonight, one of, is to talk about this big agenda item. I told you a little bit a moment ago that we got to be careful that we don't allow our rich heritage and history to be whitewashed. So now we've already proven by way of history that this new school called the Near South School will be sitting in Bronzeville, where the former Ickes was, where I grew up at, dodged a lot of bullets. And this school sitting in Bronzeville, we're getting ready to learn a whole lot about it. Now, what is the issue? We are concerned because out of nowhere, somebody was able to find $120 million to $150 million to build a brand new school. While DuSable go crazy in the chat, all my alumni and current. While Dunbar, go crazy in the chat. Let them know you're in the house. While Phillips, past, present, future, blow up the chat, represent. All of these individuals, their students are either going to struggling schools that are high schools, or they are on hospice. One of the best examples, or let me say worst example, is DuSable. Currently in DuSable, there are not even 500 students in a building that has capacity to house 3,000 to 4,000 students. And it's two schools in one building that are not named DuSable. They just threw DuSable on there for the sake of respecting people like the late, great Timeo Black, Dr. Black. May his memory be a blessing. Let's take a moment and have a moment of silence for a man who reached over 100 years old, who fought hard for not only DuSable, but our community. Quick moment of silence for Dr. Timeo Black. May his memory be a blessing. This man died hoping for the preservation of DuSable. And then you got people like Miss Grace Dawson, who's still alive and fighting the great fight. And many of the DuSable alumni, Eugene, is on today. Thank you all for the continued fight. And in that school, 2 schools, less than 500, and still under-resourced. We cannot afford to allow these 3 schools, and there are more, but these specifically 3 high schools, to receive the kind of disrespect that this potential new school would throw in their face sitting in Bronzeville. Now, let's be clear. I nor the EC, nor the Greater Bronzeville Community Action Council is against the new school. We do not believe that it has to be an or. We believe it can be an and. Because if you're going to build this new school, great, we welcome it. And you'll learn about the boundaries, why we have a great issue and why these discussions are important. But you cannot build something in Bronzeville that ain't for Bronzeville. And this is vitally important. We want it all to happen. But what our specific ask of CPS is, just like you went and found millions and tens of millions of dollars for this new school that ain't here yet, go and also find tens of millions of dollars for DuSable, for Dunbar, and for Phillips. Academics, facility, and for staff. And I want to say thank you to the CPS leadership who heard our call and said, we're coming to the meeting. And tonight they're going to present the same presentation I've seen on the Near South High School. Would you clap your hands for the Chief of Family and Community Engagement? These people are not our enemies. Here tonight, they're here to be partners. Mr. Adrian Segura. Adrian, thanks for coming.
Yes, thank you, Pastor Harris, and appreciate everyone tonight in the space. There are a couple of colleagues that are joining me today. Some of them may respond to questions directly in the chat. Others may be asked to unmute when we get to the Q&A session. And as Pastor Harris mentioned, we have a short presentation for tonight, but we also have the live YouTube link where we held last Thursday's session that has the exact same material. So if I go too fast, that version is lost the word, promise. Folks joining me today, we've got Chief Fatima Cook, who's our Chief Equity Engagement and Strategy Officer. We've got Chuck Swarsky, who's the Senior Advisor to the CEO, Laudo Roman, who's the Chief of Staff to the CEO, and Ivan Henson, our Chief Facilities Officer. And they've got their respective team members. My apologies if I missed someone. If I missed you, please shoot me a text message or a G-chat. But folks from CPS, if you want to drop in the chat your name and your role, and then if you're good with it, Pastor Harris, because I know we're having a little bit of a late start, I'm happy to run through the presentation, or we can
go for it.
All right.
Yep, you can run through the presentation. Thank you.
Sounds good. Wonderful. Please give me a thumbs up if you can see my screen. All right, perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Very validating. Great. So objectives for the session today, and I know we've got some time at the end for Q&A, but really what we did last week and what we're hoping to do today is provide a quick update on Near South High School, specifically, what's changed since September, what's the timeline looking like, and some key decisions that we're working through. We'll introduce briefly the members of the design team. Last week, we had a design team member participate. This week, we're coming to a design team members meeting. So Pastor Harris is a part of the design team, so don't be surprised when you see his name. And then we'll share information on how you can get involved as an after fact. And I think there's a great avenue. The GBCAC is a great avenue to get involved. And we'll also be doing a lot more engagement in the weeks and months ahead. So our agenda, just providing a quick overview, as I mentioned, introducing the design team and our engagement process, how we define an engagement, ways to get involved, and then we'll end it with Q&A. So the Near South High School, there are a couple of things that I think were said that I'd like to name at the top, right, that are just important. The name of the school is not Near South High School. That the name is still to be determined, and we have to go through our own board rules, policies, and regulations to get that name. There's an entire process that we have to undergo for naming the school, and the community will absolutely be a part of that. If you hear near South High School, it's because that's the region that the high school is in the near South. And so just to want to catch folks, the name for the school is not a done deal. Just want to name that at the top, and I'll do the same as we go through. If there are things that I've heard already in the chat or being said, we'll make sure we catch those as well. But it's a fast growing area. There are currently 2,255 high school age students that live in the region. We have about 6,000 elementary school students in the immediate region. In the near future, I think Pastor Harris mentioned the CHA housing on the former piece. Some of those are leasing today, and CHA is anticipating building roughly 244 units. And that means families, which means kids, which means those students will eventually have to enroll in a high school. And so this school would be there to serve those kids. And based on our own internal projections, this does not include private school students, homeschooled students, right? But based on our own CPS enrollment trends, we anticipate that the region can see a population increase for high school age students in the years ahead. What you'll see in the update slides is all proposed language. So one thing I also heard was just around the boundaries and why is it that a portion of Bronzeville, it should be all of Bronzeville. The boundaries right now, what you see on the screen is a proposed boundary. Per our own board rules and policies and procedures, we have to submit at least 2 alternative boundaries to be considered. And we plan to work very closely with the design team members to help us determine the right process to undergo to help recommend, adjust and amend those boundaries. So I just want to name that everything that you're seeing here is proposed language. And currently the proposed boundary is made up of portions of the Wells, the Phillips, and Tilden High School boundaries. And they've been designed in such a way to do 2 things. The first is to minimize any sort of negative impact on schools in the immediate surrounding area, to the tune of 3 to 8 students per grade level would be some of the bigger impacts that we'll see. Where we really see the impact, though, is in schools that are already experiencing overcrowding and students are choosing those schools. Schools such as Curie, Juarez, Kelly High School would see significant, not significant, but they would see a greater impact, but also overcrowding relief because those schools that I just named are overcrowded. The second thing the proposed boundary does is it allows us to keep 9 existing elementary school boundaries whole. So again, as we would continue to work with the design team, this may look different in a few months, but right now this is CPS putting our best foot forward to say, here's what a proposed boundary could entail, could look like. It includes Armour, NTA, Drake, Healy, Ward J, Holden, Smith, Haynes, and South Loop. Many schools that fall within the region, whether you call it near South as I do, or you can see the little dots around, and so you'll see that a lot of these schools fall immediately within the region where our partners at Bright Star are already working to support. I also want to name what Near South High School is and what Near South High School is not. And so what we're proposing as a district is a neighborhood high school to serve Armour Square in Chinatown, Bridgeport, South Loop, and Bronzeville. Now, I've heard Pastor Harris say it shouldn't say portions of Bronzeville. I commit to dropping the portions of Bronzeville because you're right, we're serving that community, and so we're just putting that. Also recognizing that, like, when you say you're going to serve a community, you all are from Chicago. I'm also born and raised in the city, right? There are the cutoffs that we see on maps, and then there are the cutoffs that we see in real life, right? For me, for example, Chicago Avenue might as well have been a huge wall that I'm not going to cross, right? And so I think that our neighborhood fabrics, right, even when you say you're going to service a region, there are natural kind of cutoffs that community members, for a variety of reasons, whether it's a viaduct, whether it's a street that gets cut off, there are a variety of non-traditional, like that you don't see on the map. But this is the communities that the school is aiming to serve. It's a school that's diverse by design and situated with CHA housing. So as mentioned, CHA is building housing as we speak. They're currently leasing housing there. And our school is going to be built right, the proposed school would be built right within that complex. It's a high school that's designed to serve roughly 1,200 students, a school that's co-developed with members of your community. The person that called today's meeting is a part of these meetings that we're having twice a week, and has raised a lot of his concerns in those sessions. And so we want to be clear, this is not a rubber stamp, but really members that represent the community who are part of these sessions, pushing our thinking, pushing our process, and helping really shape and inform the work and how we move as a district with this proposal. And it's a school funded with district, city, and state funds. So there's a diverse pool of resources that are available for this proposed high school. But Near South High School is not. We've heard anecdotally from folks, is this going to be another selective enrollment high school? Do my kids have to apply? If I currently live on 29th and State, will I have to apply to be a part of the school? It is not a selective enrollment high school. It is a neighborhood high school, which means it's a zone high school. Just want to be clear about that. It's a school, what we've heard anecdotally as well is you're building the school for the more affluent folks who want something in their backyard. It is not. This school is diverse by design. And when I say it's diverse, currently based on a proposed boundary, it's not just diverse in terms of race, it's diverse in terms of economics, it's diverse in terms of experiences, variety of things, the full spread. And so it is a diverse school, not just built for one group, but really built for the region. And what Near South High School is not, it is not a school that's built at the expense of housing. A really important characteristic of this proposed high school is that the district was authorized to purchase a parcel of land to swap with CHA so that they do not lose square footage, meaning the CHA is receiving additional land in exchange for a 95-year lease for CPS to operate the high school. And so what's new since September? I teased a couple of those pieces out, but back in September, our board voted to enter into a purchase agreement so that we can buy those two parcels of land on 23rd and Wabash to be considered as part of the land swap for CHA. They authorized CPS's ability to enter into an intergovernmental agreement for a 95-year lease with the CHA on 24th and State. And they authorize our ability to begin working with the Public Building Commission to begin the formulation process. And Pastor Harris, I'm sure, has worked with PBC and other projects that impact Bronzeville. We're working with PBC for the scope of this project as well. In October, a design team concept was formed, and stakeholders were invited to help us shape who should be at the table, what communities are impacted and represented. And what we try to do as a district was be responsive to what we were hearing from the community. And so when we get into the stakeholder design team slide, you'll see some names and you'll see the different parts of the area that they make up. In October 25th, the Tax Increment Finance Committee voted to approve $8 million from the TIF so that the district could purchase the two parcels of land on 23rd and Wabash. On November 1st, we held our first design team meeting. And meetings are held every Tuesday and every Friday. I want to thank members of the design team who are on, either as viewers or participants, for their time, because this is a big time commitment. It is at least 2.5 hours of dedicated work time, in addition to a lot of the work that they do behind the scenes, putting meetings like this together, for example. On December 14th, the City Council voted to approve the $8 million for the land acquisition. And then last Thursday, January 19th, we held our first public meeting on Near South High School since September, once our design team was able to come up with a shared understanding, a shared definition of what we mean when we say engagement. Okay, what's coming up? A lot. And so recognizing that last week, we got some feedback from folks saying, it was a webinar, not a real town hall, not real engagement. We are adjusting the engagement plan ahead so that we can start solving for some of those pieces. So in February, we plan to come back with the webinar style. However, we're working with our design team members to ensure that we have ability to have breakouts so that people can engage in dialogue with each other, with members from different communities, and have space to engage and talk. We're beginning in the month of February, we'll be launching empathy interviews, focus groups, and a survey to help us begin to understand the type of academic focus that the community wants for this new proposed high school, as well as the building amenities that will be needed to help us achieve that academic focus. And so we'll be working with our design team members to help us really engage with the community in a holistic way so that we can gather this feedback, collect these inputs, and then inform and shape our planning based on what we're hearing from stakeholders. In April, we plan to route those recommendations to CPS leadership for approval so that PVC can begin to formulate their own process based on the feedback that we heard. And then April webinar, the April, May, and June webinars are still TBD, but this is going to be a big part in June of 2020. In June, our board will be voting on the capital plan, which will include near South High School. And then tentatively 2026 will be the earliest that the building would be available for use. And again, that's just based on projected construction timelines. Things may change. So now I'm going to move on to the design team and community engagement. And so we'll start with just who's on the design team. When we say design team members, who are we talking about? When we say design team, you'll see here a majority of the design team members are parents, community members, community leaders, and that's intentional. And so you'll see we have parents, local school council members, local school council chairs. Down the community member side, you'll see stakeholders from Chinatown, stakeholders from Bridgeport, obviously Pastor Harris from Bright Star, Pastor Troy Venning, who I heard Quinn Chapel earlier in the session, David Wu from Chutech. So we've got a diverse group of community leaders that know their communities and know the region well. We've got parents at the table. And on the other end, we've got our partners from PBC who are going to be key, and then an internal cross-functional team on the CPS front. You'll note my name is on the design team because I try to position myself as a facilitator between our stakeholders and our internal teams at CPS. And so you'll see my name might not be on there, Chief Cook's name might not be on there, but we're absolutely very much involved, ensuring that engagement and equity are how we move throughout this process. And our shared definition, so the first major milestone that the design team reached earlier this year was aligning on, when we say community engagement, what do we mean? Because you put, Pastor Harris and me in a room, you ask us, what does community engagement mean? We're going to give you different answers. And I bet if we ask people on this chat, what does successful community engagement look like? We're going to get, if there are 300 people here, we're going to get 295 different answers, right? And so it's important that we have a shared understanding and a shared commitment for what this work looks like. So this definition was developed with the design team, and they define successful community engagement for the scope of this project as the design team is committed to meaningfully engaging with stakeholders from the communities impacted by the proposed near South High School. We'll ensure two-way communications are equitable by using the preferred channels of our diverse audiences and accessible language. And so part of what is bringing us here today and CPS folks here today is we heard this is a preferred channel. We're going to go to that channel so that we can tap into it and make sure that we aren't missing or skipping steps. And so I just want to reinforce that us even being here today is how committed we are to ensuring that if this is the definition the design team gave us, we have to hold our mirror. This will be our mirror and our North Star for how we move as a district when it comes to this proposal. Early on, the design team worked together to come up with a list of stakeholders. When we say who are the stakeholders that we need to engage for the scope of this project, we ran through an activity last Thursday, which I'm going to skip today just for sake of time, where we asked folks who's missing. And so we have a lot of responses from last week. Pastor Harris, I'm going to ask, if you'd be open to it down the line. I'm happy to send a survey, but just to ask folks like who's missing from this, because our stakeholder map is not done yet, right? It's a work in progress, and what we call it is a living, breathing document, meaning if next week we remember like, oh, you know what, I forgot about this one person, it's not too late to add them, right? So I just want to be clear about that. It is a living document that we'll continue to update. So if you have names, feel free to share those with Pastor Harris and his team, and they'll send them to the design team, and we'll make sure that we're taking everyone into account. We want this to be an inclusive process. And then what the design team did afterwards was go through the different engagement channels to reach the stakeholder list that we talked about. And so the way we think about this is in push notifications and pull notifications. This right here would be a pull notification, right? Pastor Harris pulls folks in so that we can set the stage, set the table, and engage in conversation. And so I would say this is a pull in like that digital / analog setting, right? Because we're analog is, you know, fully in person or papers, whereas digital is more of this. But we know that town halls can be both, right? They can be digital format, they can be virtual format or in-person format. So these are some of the channels, same as before. If you have ideas that are missing here, send those to Pastor Harris and his team. He'll bring those to the design team sessions on Tuesdays, and we'll make sure that we're updating our plans accordingly based on what you send over. Now, ways to get involved. So as I mentioned early on in this process, it was really important that we have a shared definition of when we say community engagement, what do we mean by that? And so the design team solidified what their community engagement process was going to look like in December. Then we went on a break, and now we're here, right? So where are we in the stages of this project? We're on the selecting an academic focus for the school, and we are on the recommending the building educational amenities that will be needed to help fulfill that academic focus. Down the line, we will be going through our boundaries, and we'll be working with the design team to do that, and then naming the school. As mentioned at the top, I think someone said, you know, this near South school, and then they spoke of it as if that's the final name. That's not the final name. I just want to be clear about that. We have processes that we have to follow. I think we have a board member who can probably keep me more honest on what the board needs to actually vote on when it comes to these pieces. So also feel free to drop that in the chat if I missed something. Key dates and activities. So February is going to be a really busy month in terms of a lot of those analog in-person setting sessions. We'll be doing empathy interviews through one-on-ones with impacted stakeholders to help us really narrow the academic focus and building amenities and hear what people have to say about the project. We'll also be launching focus groups and a webinar as well, much like what we did last time, with a lot more kind of in-between sessions happening like in this setting, right? Where this week it may be Bright Star that said we want to have a session. Next week it may be the GBCAC or others who are part of that design team, and we committed to being responsive to what our design team asks us to fulfill. In March, we'll present the feedback that we heard. So all of February, we'll be collecting as much feedback as we can from stakeholders in the community. And in March, we're going to present that to say, here are the academic programs that rose to the top based on our portfolio team's assessment and programmatic analysis. You know, we're going to recommend to the board X program, right? And so we'll route that to leadership towards the end of March and early April so that PBC can begin their formulation process, and then we can continue our engagement on the other items that I mentioned. We need to identify the boundaries for the school. We need to identify a name for the school down the line. So we'll be going through our processes for that. And now those are the different ways to get involved. If you're interested in being a part of a focus group, if you're interested in being part of the one-on-ones because you live in the area, your kids go to school in the area, we want to hear from you. I can drop my email in the chat if easiest, but I know Pastor Harris is also a great resource. And then for those of you that are on your screen, we do have a survey that we're collecting feedback from folks based on the presentation materials that we covered. So if you don't have a QR code or a phone handy, we can drop it in the chat as well. Pastor Harris as a follow-up here. But with that, I'm actually going to turn it back to you. I'll stop sharing my screen so I can see everyone's beautiful faces. And then we'll turn it back to you to run us through Q&A.
Thank you so very much. Could y'all snap it up and clap it up for Chief Adrian Segura? Thank you again. Even when we disagree, we remain respectful. Can I give y'all some good news? Literally, I'm not exaggerating. Literally, if we look at it, our max is 300. Listen, hundreds and hundreds of people are texting me, emailing me, fussing. I can't get in. Would y'all clap it up and snap it up for a community that wants to be involved? Listen, Greater Bronzeville does not play. Stakeholder, this is really what it's all about. And listen, I said a few things in the chat. We do not disrespect one another. We can disagree, but we do not have to disrespect. The Greater Bronzeville Community Action Council respects your time and your presence, and we will not allow such a thing. We do not mind asking you to leave this meeting. And the good part about Zoom, we can assist you even if you don't agree. So in the chat, if you become disrespectful, we will absolutely give you that usher board exit right out of this Zoom, because we don't play that. We are adults and we are respectful to one another. You can agree to disagree, but we don't have to attack one another. Thank you so very much for respecting that. I really appreciate it. So Adrian, let me say thank you and all of our leadership. What I want to make sure I heard you correctly. You said that on the original slide, it said Bridgeport, Chinatown, South Loop, and parts of Bronzeville. Did I hear you say that you all are dropping parts of Bronzeville? Let's repeat that one more time. Hold on, unmute him. There we go, Adrian, sorry.
Thank you. I was like, I can't unmute. So what we're committed. So one, regardless of those regions, it's always going to be a boundary, because those areas are so large. Chinatown's huge, right? So like, but what I have heard you consistently say and critique, and I think it's a valid point, is like, it's going to be portions of South Loop. It's going to be portions of Bronzeville. It's going to be portions of Chinatown. It's going to be portions of Bridgeport, right? But why is Bronzeville called out? And so I think from my end, fully committed to that, because it is going to service the area. And it's an easy kind of like semantic thing to fix. And it's my bad for putting that to begin with, right? I wasn't trying, when we put it there, it was, if I'm being honest, right? We didn't want to be disingenuous through our process. And so we were trying to manage and level set expectations, but I also hear that the reverse repercussion on that front is it feels as if a group is being more excluded than the other, even though everyone like is going to have their own kind of like cut, if you will, in terms of the boundary proposal.
And so just to be abundantly clear here, thank you for that. And so I think it's vitally important that we are clear. Who's going to choose the boundary? Because our theme of the Greater Bronzeville Community Action Council is nothing about us without us. Who's going to choose that, and how will you all use community engagement? Like, you got a Community Action Council and other councils that can help you from a boundaries perspective. We do this work every day. So who will determine that?
Yep.
And how is that determined?
Yeah, so we're actually that you're skipping to 3 weeks ahead at the design team meetings that you're a part of. Yeah. Because we do have a board policy. I'm happy to drop the board policy language, but per our board policy, we have to propose 3 boundaries. We need to host a minimum of 2 public forums regarding those proposed boundaries, so that we are shaping based on the feedback that we're getting from the community. We're fully committed to going through that process, and frankly, that is my opinion. That's the baseline threshold. I think with our design team, we can actually push that threshold a bit further and really engage with design team members and the community on those boundaries. But it's really important. I want to call out a nuance that we did with it might have been with you early on in the process last May. Is, if you remove a school, add a school, there are other implications on that. And so that's where it's important with our design team that folks are fully aware, right? If you remove this school, here's what it does to the demographics. If you add this school, here's what it does to, Phillips. If you remove this school, here's where, and so it's really important that our design team is fully aware of that full context and the big picture, because we do plan to work with you all to help bring this content and context out to the community, so that we are making decisions that are informed in people's daily lived experiences.
So you guys tend to ask us, and I'm raising what I raised on the design team. Listen, the guy that I preach about, he flipped tables, and I don't mind doing it when there's injustice, right? And here's the reality. We do not believe that plans should move forward for this new school without plans for DuSable, for Dunbar, and for Phillips, right? Tens of millions of dollars in those schools. Those that agree, blow up the chat and say, I agree. I want you to understand, this is not just my thought. I'm speaking on behalf of the Community Action Council, where we've had a bunch of meetings. Look at all of these names. Come on. Thank you, Vicky. Thank you, Joy. Thank you. I can't even keep up with the names. Look at all of these names. We do not agree. You got to find CPS leadership. You got to find money now, not later. We are not going on a blind date. Unfortunately, as we've talked in the past, right, trust has been eroded for years with CPS leadership, especially when a lot of times leadership of CPS is run by a temp agency. It turns around based on who's the mayor. It turns around based on who the new CEO is. And I'm not saying that we can't trust y'all heart. I'm not saying that, but we ain't gonna trust the record, right? It is abundantly clear that there is an issue. So who can speak to that greatest issue? I'm coming to if you got a question, put it in the chat. I only got 2, question and answer. I will call out your question and answer, go to the Q&A at the bottom. Has there been any discussion with CPS leadership on determining the money that is needed for DuSable, Dunbar, and Phillips academically, facility, as well as staffing? Who would like to take that question?
So I'm going to ask you to unmute Lauro Roman, our chief of staff, and he can voice that one over.
Hey, Lauro, good to see you, man.
Pastor Harris, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
Okay, great. Well, first, good to see you, Pastor Harris. Good to
You
see
too.
the Community Action Council again. I know I've met many of you in the past and in previous projects, so it's good to see everyone and a happy new year. So thank you for that question, Pastor Harris. And I was going to type into the chat, but I thought I'd just voice it over so everyone
Please.
and I can say I agree as well. I agree that there needs to be commitment, intentional investment in the Bronzeville community in our schools, right? And so I think you said it best, right? It's in talking about the high school, it hasn't been a either or, it's an and, right? And so, as chief of staff to CEO Martinez, you have that commitment from him and from myself that we will work with the community, and by community I mean the Community Action Council, principals, LSCs, parents, residents, to understand and help us co-design what those investments look like, right? And so while I understand that a dollar amount is sort of where the focus is, I think right now, as sort of Adrian went through the very detailed approach to the high school, that's how detailed we want to get with the Bronzeville community, right? I think I appreciate you sharing in the beginning the Bronzeville Community Action Plan, because when I see that Bronzeville Community Action Plan, in my mind, I think that's the type of level that we need to be in terms of what investments we need to do, right? We're moving away from the approach of a top down, like this is the investment we're going to make it work school, right? We know we have to do this in a co-design approach with all the stakeholders I mentioned and more, right? The principals, LSCs, CACs, all the communities, elected officials, all those tied into it. And so we are being intentional with how we are being very methodical and detailed with those details. And I will say, the onus is on CPS to get back to the Bronzeville CAC and to lay out that plan. As clearly as we laid out like the next steps moving forward with this high school, we need to lay out a clear plan for what that investment will look like for Bronzeville and next steps. So, that's the commitment that you have from us, that we agree there needs to be intentional investments in the Bronzeville neighborhood schools.
Thank you very much. I'm asking our aldermen to get ready to unmute in just a moment and have a word here. Sharon Thompson Sappho asked the question, what capital improvements are needed for each existing Bronzeville elementary and high school? Example, HVAC systems, roofing, windows, walls, playgrounds, gymnasiums, fields, grounds. I'll add in staff and for academic. I think that's very important. And social emotional learning. Do all, she capitalized all, do all improvements have a budget allocation? Who would like to take that question?
So I think he's on. If you can unmute Ivan Henson. Ivan is our chief facilities officer. He might not have the specifics right in front of him, but I think can voice over what the strategy has been. So Ivan, I don't know if you're on and can just talk maybe about. I think he's
unmuted.
Yeah, I'm unmuted. Thank you, Pastor Harris. So I can't speak to every specific school, but what I can tell you is that we have just in the last 2 years started our facility assessments back up again, where we go through every single facility and we actually go and rate the systems that are there. And we have uploaded those to every school's website. And you can go on there and you can kind of see what the need is. I will tell you that Personally, myself and Chuck Swirsky work very closely with the alderman. And I know she has a list of items that she's provided us that are needed or definitely raised to her attention. But I'm happy to go through that list individually with you guys if you have questions specific per school.
Thank you very much. Anonymous participant, will the BCAC, and it wasn't me, but I sure want to ask this question. Will the GBCAC be part of establishing the boundaries?
So Pastor Harris, you are a member of the design team, and the design team is going to help us map out the process by which we undergo to finalize the boundary conversation. As mentioned at the top of the session, right? Everything that we have right now is proposed language, and is our best thinking to date. But to answer that pointedly, the GBCAC will absolutely be engaged throughout that process. Laudo, I see your hand is up, so I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, no, I think just straightforward, yes. So like when we have those proposals before going to the board, I think there are a number of board members that we have that have made it a point that, our CACs are vital to the planning for the district. And so I think that's a commitment that we can make, that we will come back to the greater Bronzeville CAC and show the proposed boundaries, right? And get feedback, right? Because I know obviously always appreciate Pastor Harris's participation. I know there's a larger group that, would help inform residents to kind of dispel any misinformation that's out there. So you have our commitment that we'll come back and share those proposals.
Thank you very much. Another question on here. There is a gap. There's an obvious gap in academics within these boundaries. Is there an action plan for those students who may not be ready to follow the curriculum? Anybody want to take that?
Let's see. Do we have someone from our? I don't mean to put her on the spot, but maybe just given her exposure to being a deputy chief of schools, maybe Chief Cook, if you're comfortable taking a portion of that. But Chris, can you please repeat the question on student outcomes?
Absolutely. There is an obvious gap in academics within these boundaries. Is there an action plan for those students who may not be ready to follow the curriculum?
Thanks, Adrian. So I think that while I can't name the specific action plan for this school because it is proposed, but I can speak to what it looks like across the district. And so we have schools all over the district where we have different levels where students come in to high schools. And so MTSS interventions is our main kind of big system that we use for providing interventions for students, not only on the SEL side, but also on the academic side.
Thank you very much. I'm going through these questions. I'm asking what you, with the school closure moratorium lifting in 2025, this is important. Can CPS guarantee that neighboring schools won't be on the hit list if this school happens?
Yeah, so just to be clear, the proposed school is to service a growing region. It's not a consolidation plan, or we're not planning anything like that. Right, what we're proposing is a new school to service a region that is rapidly growing, and so the answer is no. This is not to put schools on a hit list. Is if that's the question.
Okay. All right. So I mean, tonight you can only bet, and this is why. And Adrian, let me just say this, and I want to challenge CPS leadership. Right. This is why the webinar piece does not work, right? And I told you all that in all of the meetings. It doesn't work because it doesn't really see the people that matter. And that's all the people you can see. This is what you call a community meeting, right? And the webinar piece does not work. And so it's important. We don't have to run from, I cannot say that we don't trust you all, but if you continue to do the things that the folks we didn't trust in the past did, we won't trust you all. So here's an opportunity to make sure that we do proper community engagement. We don't have to run from the truth. We don't have to run from the answers. We just need to be straight up and keep it 100, right? Because we can handle challenging decisions, but we need to be included. Nothing about us without us. It's important. Our alderman is on the line. We've had some serious discussions. We have not been on the same page on everything, but we are friends. We don't always have to agree, but you don't have to be disagreeable. And so I want to put on the record that Alderman Pat Dow has been one of the greatest supporters of the Greater Bronzeville Community Action Council and has done a significant amount of work as it relates to helping our schools. This is a hot button issue for all of us. And it is my prayer that we will end up on the same page. I want to be clear. We are building a school on property that people like my Aunt Georgia and my cousin Tracy was pushed out of the Ickies. So this is personal for some of us that are on this call. And the promise was those residents will be brought back. And we know that was never the intent then, and it's clearly not the intent now. So we got to operate in integrity before we continue to perpetuate more of the trauma, right? And so that's why hearing from these voices, would y'all snap it up and clap it up for the Alderman of the 3rd Ward, Alderman Pat Dow. Alderman, how are you tonight? Unmute yourself. There you go.
Pastor Harris.
Hey there.
I'm going to take, if you will allow me, about 5 minutes, okay?
Go for it.
Maybe less. First of all, I want to thank you for calling this meeting together. It is truly a community meeting, and I agree with your point of view related to how CPS should handle their meetings. In fact, I told CPS staff that, you know, I didn't like the way the webinar was handled because you couldn't see who was on, how many people were there. There was no chat. You know, a community meeting, you allow that, or at least you allow that and Q&A. So I support that. I also want to thank you for bringing in Dr. Kimball. We had a heated conversation over the weekend about the boundaries of Bronzeville. And so I will acknowledge publicly that I learned some stuff here tonight. So thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
I want to say that I want to go back and deal with 2 things. One, the CHA history here of the Icky site. Now, the plan for transformation for CHA predates me. I'm elected in 2007. The plan for transformation had already been decided on. Ickes was still standing at that point, and I guess the decision was made back then to bring back 277 units of public housing. That promise to those residents who were the right to return families, those people who chose, who lived at Ickes and said, I want to move back to Ickes, those 277 people had the right to do that. Now, I can't, I'm not going to take the blame for how long it took CHA to fulfill that promise, because I don't control CHA. The city council has no control over the CHA. That's basically a mayor's office entity. The mayor controls CPS, Park District, community colleges, and the CHA. So I'm not going to take that weight. What I've been doing is advocating for the development of all of my CHA sites, making sure that the investments were made in Dearborn, making sure that we could bring back the, you know, the different phases of Stateway. Under my term here, we've done 2 phases of Stateway Gardens, 1 phase of Robert Taylor. Now we're on 1 phase of Ickes. All 277 units are being returned back to that site. That's why the land was sought on Wabash, so we could ensure that those families were able to return. So I'm going to put that in the parking lot. The second issue is, and I think Craig Wembley, who I see is on here, and you, Pastor Harris, have said what I think is the issue. The issue is, you know, the amount of money that's being spent to bring in a near South high school in an area that has seen tremendous growth. The South Loop has been growing exponentially. I've been hearing about the need for a high school in that area since 2008, 2009. okay, we have an opportunity to bring that to fruition. But I also acknowledge that the schools in Bronzeville, even though I have worked very hard to get them better resource, to bringing in dollars for both capital improvements at schools like Phillips and Beasley and Mollison and Wells Prep. I mean, I could go on, but we need more. It is definitely not enough. And so I support the position of the Greater Bronzeville CAC as a member and as a founding member, that this school should not be built until we have a plan in place for both capital improvements and curriculum and programmatic improvements. And that, in my view, that should not, no groundbreaking on that school should take place until CPS can come back to the community and explain what is going to be done, how it's going to be, how much it's going to cost, and how those dollars are going to, where those dollars are going to come from. I represent a long ward. My ward is very diverse. It goes from Roosevelt Road to 55th Street. I have to meet the requirements and serve the needs of all of my constituency. And I believe that this is an opportunity to do that in both places. And so I'm willing to come back and have more discussion with you all. I've been a little lax lately. I haven't been to a meeting, but you can pick up the phone, Pastor Harris, and anybody else that are members of this organization, and call me. I try to be transparent and honest in my approach to making sure that we can come out with a win-win situation for everybody. Thank you for your time.
Alderman, I want to snap it up and clap it up for you. Thank you so very much for several major acknowledgements. Number one, the true boundaries of Bronzeville. And this is what you call conflict resolution. Everything does not have to be confrontational. It just needs to be conversational until you need to fight. And I want to say thank you for that acknowledgement. Again, as a son of the soil of Bronzeville, listen, my parents and my grandparents came here with the underground railroad is in Bronzeville. They got off the train down there by 12th Street. This is serious. And Black people during the Great Migration could only be in the Black metropolis. And that's why it's so important. So thank you for that acknowledgement, number one. So it is solidified, should be no argument in the future, that this school is being built in Bronzeville. Sound like we said on this meeting, that it will also be able to benefit Bronzeville, not just South Loop, not just Chinatown, not just Bridgeport. And some of our friends are on here. I want to thank Grace, Wu, and David, who are on here representing Chinatown. We had a great conversation over the weekend. Listen, this is what it's all about, collaborative. It should be owned by us, driven by us, led by us, but not just us. The Chinatown students do matter. The Bridgeport students do matter. The South Loop students do matter. But we're going to be abundantly clear that the Bronzeville students matter equally. And it's important. So thank you for that acknowledgement. And we do want to thank you, Alderman, that this process should not move forward without at the same time. Come on, you remember the movie, same time. Listen, there ought to be a plan for those three schools at the same time. We are asking Adrian, Laurel, we're asking CPS Fatima, we're asking all of you, Dr. Cook, please, we want a design team for those three schools, just like you got a design team for this new school. Just like we're having weekly meetings for this near South school, we want weekly meetings for Phillips, for Dunbar, DuSable. I'll throw this blackjack card on the table. Pastor Thomas, this is important. You and I had some conversations about this. We know housing affects population in the schools. We know that. I'm still getting blown up. Hundreds of people asking me, let me in, let me in. Listen, people care about this issue, especially when trusted voices call people together without hidden agendas. We know that housing affects it. I told you, I was born and raised in the Dearborn homes. Aunts and uncles were in the Ickeys, Stateway Gardens, and raised up in the Robert Taylor homes. I know all about it all because that's where I was born and raised. But here is the key. When they tore down the projects, it affected population. And there is no real plan. We've talked to CHA about bringing housing back. So what we talked about, I talked to Grace Dawson, and we're going to be moving forward. What do we do with that building, DuSable? Here is what some of us have been talking about. And the EC, we want to raise it tonight. What if, since there is no housing plan within the next 7 to 10 years to repopulate DuSable, what if we make, this is what I threw out to Grace Dawson, we got to have a long conversation about this. This is not a decision. One more time, this is not a decision. Third time for the Holy Ghost, this is not a decision. This is an idea. What if we make the move? And this is what I said to Grace Dawson, who is one of the alumni at DuSable. What if we make the new school be called DuSable? Take those 400 to 500 students that are in that building in 2 schools, bring them down there to the new school, right? Let them benefit from it. And since, from my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, I don't know if Network Chief Hester is on, but from my understanding, the high school's network is already remodeling some of DuSable, putting the network office in DuSable. What if you make DuSable a workforce development center? What if you make it a community center? Put the community-based organizations in that building and take that name, DuSable, and put it in the Near South School. Because Near South is not a community. From my perspective, historically, South Loop is not a community. Historically, it was called Bronzeville. Now, I don't have anything against them calling it that, but let's not forget that it's still Bronzeville. And if the building is in Bronzeville, and there is precedence, because I went to Carter G. Woodson School, north and south, across the street from Bright Star, on 44th and 45th and Evans. That school was not always called Woodson. It was called Forestville. Right? My mama went to Phillips. So we have the history. So sometimes these kind of changes are okay, but we are willing, the bottom line of that example is we are willing to put some focus, because Greater Bronzeville Community Action Council and constituents, we can't just say don't do nothing, and we can't fight everything. We're going to have to make some hard decisions that will be best for the community, but we want them to be a part of the process. It is so important that we do this. So thank you so much, Alderman. I want to make sure that we've covered all of the questions. Let me go back to the question. CPS, last question for this. CPS has always starved Black and brown schools in this city. When and if ever will the mayor and her handpicked staff give us the schools our students need and deserve? I know that the mayor is not on here. I want to acknowledge that the deputy mayor of education, Jay Stapleton, gave me a call, couldn't make it tonight because of a previous issue. She said that she would come back. If anybody want to take that question or text it to the mayor, feel free. Adrian, you want to touch that or leave it alone and wait on the mayor?
The short end of it, I think that's important call out here. And, those of us that have been working in education and policy in particular for the last decade, like I was part of the Fight for Fair funding back in 2016, 2017. The reality is, per our state's own admission, Chicago Public Schools has been woefully underfunded. And so I think that, it takes real advocacy. And I know I was going down there with thousands of parents to make the funding formula more equitable for the city and for other, not just Chicago, because folks try to make it a Chicago issue, but it's not. It actually impacts a lot of other school districts across our state. And so I think, first and foremost, there's real opportunity there to lobby and advocate to our state to fully fund Chicago Public Schools. And so I will, the other contextual items, I will defer to our counterparts at the city, but I do think it's really important just to name that, yes, our biggest source of funding does come from our state budget. And so I just want to make, or from local and state funds. And so it's really important just to name that, there's a real opportunity to engage the greater Bronzeville region as we advocate for more resources for Chicago Public Schools.
Thank you very much. Last statement, I want to go to Dr. Grace Dawson. Can y'all find, I think she made it in. Let me look for her. I'm gonna let her have the last word on this piece. Dr. Dawson, I saw that you came in. I'm trying to find you. Hundreds and hundreds of people.
I found her.
You found her? Can you unmute her? Dr. Dawson, are you there?
Here I am. I ran in the kitchen.
There go my girl. Will y'all snap it up and clap it up for Dr. Grace Dawson? Listen, Dr. Dawson, I want to tell you we love you. I called your name about 72 times during this meeting, saying we fighting for the DuSable alumni. We had a moment of silence for Dr. Timio Black. Can you just have a word on what you all have been doing as it relates to the DuSable school? Just a quick 60-second word. I hate to do that. We overtime, but you came to church late. But real quick.
Forgive me because I was running the kitchen all that time, cooking and everything, and I looked up and here I was past due. So we have done so much, and I had written everything down, but that's what happens when you get a little old. You forget about what's present. But I just want to tell everybody that we are so passionate about having DuSable alive and well in this century. We do not want to lose our legacy. We do not want to lose the meaning and passion of what DuSable has brought to us since 1935. So we need all of you to pray, help, and work with us to make sure something happens that DuSable's legacy does not go away. We have been working hard since I graduated in 1950, and we started having problems in 2000. That's when the problems first started about whether DuSable was going to remain alive or not. And we fought, and we continue to fight. We're not giving up. Our old president, who died in 2009, said that we would not stop and we would be here and nothing would happen unless it happened over our dead bodies. Well, all of us are getting so close to that now. We not going to use that phrase anymore, over our dead bodies. It's just not going to ever happen. We're going to have DuSable alive and living, and you're going to help us have it. And I appreciate you, Reverend, because you have gotten in here and you have worked with us. And Tim didn't see it. He didn't live to see what we wanted to see. I'm 90 years old. I was 90, May 8th, 1932 born. And I plan to be here. I asked God for 115. So I think by then we will have DuSable. A new DuSable, old DuSable, or whatever. We're not going to let that go down the drain. When I was a little girl, we had 2 high schools in Chicago that blacks went to, Phillips and DuSable in 35. We are not going to forget that. We're not going to let anybody take that from us. So all of you might not have gone to DuSable, but I declare you DuSableites, and therefore fight with us to maintain our legacy.
Dr. Dawson, I love you so much. My grandfather's house was right across the street from DuSable. I got hit by a car. We used to live right there outside of DuSable, and I got hit by a car, almost died. But thank God, somebody from DuSable and right there around DuSable helped me to live, and I'm grateful. And my sister went to DuSable. She got kicked out, but she went to DuSable. But Dr. Dawson, you have my word. We're going to continue to fight with you. And as I shared with you, I talked to you about the potential of talking to the alumni to see if we can get them to agree to, let's talk about, at least discuss, calling the new school that they're currently calling Near South, which does not have a name yet, potentially calling that DuSable to keep that legacy going. And who knows, the current DuSable building, which I believe is a landmark, can become, who knows, Dr. Timio Black Mentorship Center, the Dr. Grace Dawson Workforce Development Center. Who knows? We can do something with those buildings, and we can make sure that we give DuSable a fresh look of revival, and we are committed to that. Would y'all go crazy and clap for the one and only Dr. Grace Dawson? We got your back, mama, and all of the alumni that are on here. I am excited about what we are doing. Will y'all clap for CPS leadership who showed up tonight to hear the community and respond to the community? Laurel, Adrian, Dr. Cook, everybody else, Ivan, I want to tell you all thank you so very much for what you're doing. We are serious, not just about this school and the FACE department. Carl Hurdley, Lord have mercy. Man, thank you all. We are serious, not just about this school, but we're serious about all schools in the greater Bronzeville area. And one of the things that we are super excited about is repurposing one of the schools. I went to Carter G. Woodson School, and we are turning this into the temporary turn center. I want to thank CPS and the aldermen for supporting this. We are repurposing not Carter G. Woodson Public School that is open on the 44th Street side. This used to be the CPS Carter G. Woodson University of Chicago Charter School. And we closed it down because I'm on the advisory board on that. And we are repurposing this school. Ain't that what y'all mayor's been saying we was going to do? So Bright Star Community Outreach, along with the other 75 plus partners that do this work in the community, we are all going to be in this building together, repurposing this, calling this the temporary turn center until we build. I'm not building a church. Bright Star has agreed. St. James has agreed. We don't want to build a stained glass windows church. We want to build a community center where we can work and worship out of. So as soon as church is over, rent out that joint, and then we can do workforce development, deal with education, deal with health, deal with trauma counseling, making sure that we give people financial literacy, and bring the other partners in the building that do work for all of these schools. If your organization is a part of doing great work in our school, blow the chat up right now, name your organization, show these folks that the Greater Bronzeville CAC, partnering with Bright Star and this Greater Bronzeville Community Action Plan, we are serious about the work. Come on, call the names. Their names are on these doors. They work every day to make this happen. And we are going to be cutting the ribbon on this building, April 4th, the day that Dr. King was assassinated, under the theme, Keep the Kings Alive, the Dreamers. And we are excited about it because while our teachers, while our educators are struggling to educate our students, we ought to be supporting them. If it's Chief Eileen Mason or Chief Hester on, I want to unmute you quickly, give you a word or two. We've run out of our agenda. Don't y'all leave. I want to tell you what our next meeting is going to be. And we want to make sure that you join. Please email everybody. Email Annie Simmons. Annie will put her email address. We want you to join the CAC. So email PCH Assistant at Bright Star Kojic. Keep putting her email in the chat. Email her and say, I want to join the CAC because we are better together. Is Chief Mason on? Chief Eileen Mason. If you are, say your name.
She's unmuted.
She's unmuted. Chief Mason, you there? All right, Chief Hester, are you there? All right. Jeff, I want you to give people a commercial. Oh, there she is. I see you, Chief Mason.
Yeah, I was trying to unmute.
All right, Chief Mason, thank you. Chief Mason, you run all of the elementary schools in the Greater Bronzeville. It's Network 9, correct?
Yes.
Could you just
27 schools.
Give us an update, number one, on the state of your schools, because everybody, we're going to end at 8 o'clock. We always end on time. Jeff Broom, I promise, in our next meeting, you'll present. Thank you for understanding. Give us the state of the schools and how important it is for us to make sure all these schools get the resources that they need. Talk to us.
So the state of our schools, first of all, I'm proud to serve our proud network, Network 9 principals and administrators. And so one of the main focuses I think we've heard throughout tonight is around the professional development and making sure that our teachers are prepared with what they need to be successful so that students are successful. And so one of the main initiatives that we have is we've had a very robust professional development plan for all of our staff and teachers that take advantage around from IR and building an instructional core to cognitive student engagement to restorative practices in schools, SEL development, All of those things are things that we offer from month to month in our professional development, as well as my team going into schools and working with school leaders and teachers and lead coaches in schools to improve and to make those improvements. The state of our schools right now, all of our schools are engaged in a middle of the year assessment, kind of a tap in to see what's going on and where kids are based on interventions that have been put in place from the beginning of the year to now. And then as we collect that information, we'll see where our status is at this point as we move forward and make plans. But we're working really hard. It's an all hands on approach. My team and I and my deputy, who's also on the call, are in the schools trying to make sure that we all on the same page coming to the finish line.
Could you talk a little bit about some of the struggles in the school? Because a lot of times we assume everything is okay. Could you talk very frankly and transparently about many of the struggles you've talked to me about and others, principals and things?
We're really getting those right resources to schools. One of the initiatives that we've taken about has been around talent and creating our own pipeline to really recruit talent, recruiting teachers. We have partnered with universities, and my deputy Reynolds, who's on the call as well, have worked together trying to pull in universities, really trying to recruit because talent is an issue across the state. So we want to make sure that our principals have that support as they're letting us know what their vacancies are, not just teacher vacancies, but also teacher assistant vacancies and SECA vacancies that they have in their schools. So we want to make sure that I don't see barriers. We don't see barriers in how we lead. So we try to look outside the box to try to bring in what we need to have to support school leaders.
Thank you so very much.
That's one of the main ones.
Would y'all clap it up and snap it up for Chief Mason? You've been working all day. You hung with us tonight. Thank you for your leadership. We got your back. We're going to get money to bring resources back to your schools because we're talking about high school tonight. But if the students don't learn under your leadership and all of those principles, they won't be ready for those high schools. So we want to make sure we create a pipeline of success, which is vitally important. One more time, Chief Hester, are you on? I want to just give you a moment, an opportunity. I made a promise that we would go and get money if the community-based organizations would collaborate. MacArthur gave me $1 million. And instead of giving it just to Bright Star Community Outreach, the Lord told me give most of it away. And we gave more than 62 to 65% of those dollars to 15 other community-based organizations. Because here's what we believe. We are better together. And this is what collaborative partnership is about. I want to give one more opportunity for Chief Mason if he is on. He's over all the high schools. All right, we're going to move on. So listen, let me just say this. Our next meeting, please email Annie Simmons at PCHassistant@BrightStar.COGIC. The next step for the CAC is we are going to make appointments with every board member of CPS to talk about these issues, because listen, we want something in writing. And we want to believe that we can believe what you told us to believe. And the only way we can believe what you told us to believe is if it is in writing. So I am excited about it. Let me just tell you, I'm grateful. We're going to need you. Every Community Action Council member, EC member, I want to tell you thank you. We've held you all extremely long, and there was no way we could cover the entire agenda. But Jeff, I'm going to ask Jeff if you are on. I'm looking through if you're still there. We're going to unmute you. Jeff, at our next meeting, you're going to give a presentation talking about how the schools are held accountable. Could you just give us a quick commercial on what we're going to be learning? Many people know this as SQRP, correct?
Yes, sir, Pastor Harris. Yes,
Bring us
thank
up to
you.
speed on what that is.
Absolutely. So this is the teaser here is that the SQRP, the old level 1, 2, 3 system is gone. That's done. And so the question that we've been working on for a couple, 3 years now is what comes next. And so I want to give my thanks to Pastor Harris and the rest of the exec council for giving me some time on your next agenda to let you know, let the CAC know where we are going with that. And we want to give this group plenty of notice prior to any board action on the matter of the direction that the district is going to take on how we measure and report on school quality, and not just hold schools accountable, but the district accountable too. So Pastor Harris, at the next meeting, you and I will coordinate. That's what we'll be talking about. And I'll be looking forward to some more time on that agenda.
Thank you so very much, Jeff. Listen, everybody put this date on your calendar. Our next meeting. Hold on. We can't afford to wait because we got to come back to y'all and tell y'all we got something in writing. Put it on your schedule. Monday, February 13th. Annie, check the schedule really, really fast. Carl, check the schedule really, really, really fast. Monday, February 13th. EC, executive committee members, please put the words all good in the chat. If we can host our next meeting, we can't wait 2 months. We gotta put this stuff in writing. We need it. All good. Thank you, Annie. EC members, talk to me. Thank you, Saida. All good. Crystal, all good. Viv, all good. Sylvia, all good. Kahari, thank you. All good. Bishop, all good. Excellent. Everybody on here, please, our next meeting will be on February 13th. It will be this same exact number because we're going to go and max this out. There were literally hundreds of people who could not get on, but y'all kept this thing solid. And I want to tell you, thank you. Listen, we need stuff in writing. So between now and then, we will work toward what the commitment is. Thank you so very much. This is what community engagement really looks like. And we promise, as you join the CAC, we will always start on time at 6 o'clock. We will always end on time at 8 o'clock. And one of my favorite things to do is to give you some of your time back. Everybody, please join the CAC. Put that date on your calendar. This will be the same exact link. And we're going to be reporting out and sending out to you the recording of this meeting. Please share it with everybody else. The last thing that I would say on here, we should not support any politician that does not represent our voice. None of them. Because they only get our vote when they represent our voice. It is important, especially we got a race right now with the 4th Ward. One of the things, I'm glad that Pat Dow won. She's invested all kinds of money in our schools. But we need an alderman for the 4th Ward. Sophia King is running for mayor, and now that seat is open. And we're going to be asking all of our candidates that are running for the 4th Ward, be at the meeting on the 13th. If you can, if that date change, we'll email you. But we want to hear what your vision is for education, because we are not voting for anybody with name recognition. No. What have you done? And what are you going to do? And what are you doing now? That's what it's all about. Last words, Ms. Saida Segovia Taylor. Something amazing happened the other day. And I want you to just share with everybody what took place. If you don't mind unmuting.
If you could just play the link. Yep. I don't have access.
All right, hold on. Go ahead, start talking while I'm trying to do that.
So over 600 people signed up to serve in our schools. Over 450 people filled the auditorium at King High School. And then we had close to 300 people do actual service projects in 6 different school buildings in Bronzeville. And we raised over $15,000 to do this. And we were covered on various news channels. And so here's one by Leanne Trotter that came to see what we were doing. Now go to, I think, 20 seconds.
Today is Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Day. The national holiday commemorates the life and contribution of Dr. King. And in that spirit, observations and celebrations were held across the country today. This is a look at parades in St. Petersburg, Florida, and in San Antonio, Texas. The annual parade was held in person today for the first time since January of 2020. And for many people around the Chicago area, MLK Day is about service. Several community partners in Bronzeville came together to transform several Chicago public school buildings. They also raised $15,000 to fund projects. Leanne Trotter has that story.
Like, deal with it one letter at a time. based on what he could reach.
Professional artist Ramon Static Barnes overseeing the painting of his mural in the hallway at Revis Math and Science Specialty School in Bronzeville. There are 50 people volunteering their time here today, sprucing up the school with mural painting, classroom painting, as well as cleaning and organizing.
I'm here because I would like to give back to the community. As a student who's studying here in Chicago, I think it's very important to be involved.
This volunteer is also here for the first time and really wanted to help out the community.
So now we're going to create a black and golden kind of like mural where we're going to have the happy birthday on top and celebrations and everything. But we're still kind of trying to figure out how this thing's going to work.
I'm so excited. I can't wait for my kids to come back tomorrow to see this new artwork on the wall. It's going to surprise everyone as they're transitioning from class to class.
This 5th annual King Day of Service in Bronzeville has really grown over the years. This is one of 6 locations in Bronzeville. They have service projects going on with over 200 volunteers. The event is organized by this couple. They live in the neighborhood. They actually had to turn hundreds of people away.
As Baha'is, we're taught that you're supposed to be of service every day. And Dr. King sacrificed so much for the entire nation to have this concept.
We're here with our families, with our co-workers. Companies brought their co-workers together, and meeting our neighbors, seeing long friends who we hadn't seen for a long time. That's the kind of feeling that we think Dr. King and the legacy was all about.
Reporting from Bronzeville, Leanne Trotter, NBC5 News.
I'm asking y'all, please go crazy. Snap it up and clap it up for the amazing
Please understand
Miss
that
Saida Segovia Taylor. Great job, one of our EC members. Listen, don't forget, email Annie Simmons. So excited about you all partnering and being a part of our next meeting, currently scheduled Monday, February 13th, 6 p.m. If the date change, we'll let you know, but we need you to email Annie to let us know. We meet from 6 to 8 p.m. typically every other month, but guess what? We like to start on time and end on time, but guess what? We're giving y'all some time back. Have a great night. Thank you for showing up, not for me, but for our students. And guess what? Remember these words, nothing about us without us. Have an amazing night, everybody. We will email you this video, share it on your social media platforms. Have a good night.